Good evening, every pony. My name is EmeraldComet, and I'm here this evening to review another requested fanfic. This story is called Twilight's Best Friend by Blue Shift. Twilight's Best Friend is a slice-of-life story and focuses, fittingly enough, on Twilight, who is visited one night by a pony named Dewdrop Dazzle, aka her apparent long-lost twin. More seriously, however, Dewdrop claims to be Twilight's biggest fan. Ergo, she knows an unsettling amount of information about Twilight and her friends, is completely obsessed about her, and overstays her welcome. And when Twilight feels that Dewdrop has been a burden on her for far too long, she creates a scheme to get rid of her once and for all. Part of what I really like about this story is that it's a callback to one of my favorite TV shows of all time, Father Ted, and the episode Entertaining Father Stone. In this episode, the main characters are visited by a monotone priest named Father Stone, who does nothing but sit on the sofa all day, creating this huge awkward silence throughout all of his scenes. Take a crystal pony when she has no energy, multiply her by Maud, put the equation to the power of Tom, and you basically have Father Stone. Both characters look up to the protagonist of their respective stories and idolize them. They also, however, end up infringing on their personal lives and drive them to near insanity. Thankfully, however, Dewdrop isn't just a copy-paste version of Father Stone. In fact, she's completely the polar opposite. She's bouncy, excitable, and seems to love every minute that she is spending in Twilight's home and in the streets of Ponyville. In addition, she's hilarious. Her crazy fangirl persona lends its way to a lot of funny lines and scenarios. I know that there are people who would make the argument that she's a stalker, but she's not really. She's more of an overexcited fangirl who's very well versed on Twilight's exploits. She just takes things a tad bit too far in the end. But even then, she's only doing these things because she wants to spend time with Twilight and witness her hero's great acts in person. And I know that this isn't how everyone would react to meeting their hero, but since Dewdrop's actions are more played up for comedy, I consider her to be very well written. Twilight is also very enjoyable here. She gets some good lines, gets stuck in a few sticky situations which are brilliantly funny, and seeing her ever-present unstable sanity slowly drain away is always entertaining to see. Am I a sicko for admitting that I like watching Twilight lose her mind? Screw it. I also like the scheme that Twilight comes up with to get rid of Dewdrop. While it's not very complex, I like how Twilight resorts to this option only after she's been pushed to her limits after trying to sort things out diplomatically and passive-aggressively. And very thankfully, the story doesn't stray down the Lesson Zero crazy Twilight path and doesn't turn her into a crazed psychotic. Though, on the subject of crazy Twilight, I would say that the chapter where Twilight does carry out her plan has a pretty jarring change in tone from slice of life to dark fic, but it's pretty short-lived and only really happens at the end, so it's not really too big of a problem. Something that is a problem, however, is the ending. Without giving too much away, Twilight realizes that her plan could have gotten Dewdrop hurt, so she goes out to find her only to see that she's ended up being severely injured. Twilight then brings Dewdrop back to her home and does everything in her power to help her recover, which is something I like, since it's nice to see Twilight doing whatever she can to correct the problem she started, even acknowledging that she isn't even a hero for saving Dewdrop since she was the one who started the whole fiasco. After Dewdrop regains consciousness, we get a really good moment where Twilight confesses her wrongdoings, and in turn learns a lesson about having the courage to talk to people when they overstep their boundaries, and help them see what they're doing wrong, which is great. Dewdrop, however, even though she says that she's learned a lesson, is shown right after she leaves Twilight's home to have run off and found Trixie to start the whole cycle over again. Not only does this make Dewdrop look really bad because she lies to Twilight's face, it also just sours the story at the very last second. Dewdrop could have had this great heart-to-heart moment with Twilight where she recites her own lesson, but now has even more respect for Twilight because of her confession. Or it could have ended with Dewdrop just taking off in the middle of the night and Twilight having this internal dialogue moment the next day where we see that she's sad but at the same time hopeful for Dewdrop's future. But no, we get a joke that leaves a bad taste in your mouth and that's it. Golden opportunity for interesting character development lost. There's not many major things left to talk about, so I'll just go over a few small things I like about this story, one of which being its atmosphere in places. The thunderstorm in Chapter 1 building up the arrival of the whirlwind that is Dewdrop Dazzle, and the following thunderstorm which is set as a backdrop as Twilight carries out her plan are very well placed and help give their scenes a very nice, tense feeling. And the final thing I really liked about it is one line which is said by Twilight early in the story which really caught my interest. In Chapter 1, Twilight is reading Spike a horror story about a crazed murderer pony, and after he gets scared, Twilight puts his fears to rest by saying, "There's no such thing as murder." I like this line a lot, mostly because I think it's a really good way of showing how well structured equestrian society is. From what we've seen in the show, Equestria is portrayed as kind of a utopian place where crime is all but non-existent, with acts of evil only being caused by villains from the past when times were tougher. Because of this, it really interests me to see them murder as something like a ghost story in their world, something that they use to scare little fillies and colts. It really adds a lot to the image of a world without conflict, and in a way makes you appreciate the way Equestria has been portrayed to us a little bit more. So overall, I think Twilight's Best Friend is a very enjoyable read. The dialogue is well written and packed with humor, the characters are very entertaining, the concept of giving a personality to a blind bag figure who has never even been in the show before is a very creative one, and it's a great callback to one of the best shows of all time. The ending does suck, but if you're willing to overlook that, then Twilight's Best Friend is definitely a story I can recommend. Thank you to Obub Scribbler who suggested this fic to me, and once again, I'm EmeraldComet, and I'll see you all next time. Hello, Repony. You know, we've had some laughs with the review, but now that it's over, I feel it necessary to tell you all that the majority of this story took place within the walls of the Golden Oaks Library. Which, by the way, do they ever actually call it that in the show itself? Regardless, as of the Season 4 finale, Twilight's library has been destroyed. It is a passing that has moved the hearts of every brony, and has driven some to tears. It was a humble home, one that has been around since the very inception of Friendship is Magic. It is indeed a very sad passing, and I ask that we all give a brief moment of silence, so that we may reflect on how the library touched our lives, and that we may cherish its memory forever. Alright, I'm over it. We got a tree castle now. Looks a little weird, but hell, I'm not complaining. And you know, I gotta say, it's really nice to see how people have been so accepting of Twilight's new accommodation. Really shows you how far we've come as a fandom. Remember how we used to complain about things which didn't end up ruining anything after all in the end? In all honesty, I'm proud of you guys. I'm proud that for once we can hold our heads high and say that we got through an entire season of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic without any dram. You can't just let me dream, can you?